But I told her, I've led a somewhat dangerous life, so to me, it just made sense that I would have some close calls. These NDEs of mine, they were just a way of life. I realized that 9 is a pretty high number for one person. So today I want to tell you a personal story that will relate directly to both Order of the Five and my last film, Trickster, which are linked in ways that are tricky to explain. Last night I was on the phone with my executive producer and close friend Lauren, who is also one of my muses and one of the people I have a quantum consciousness connection to. And that's a kind of tease because I'm not going to go into what I think quantum consciousness is in this exact episode. Maybe at another time. Now, Lauren is a very close friend, but she's also a new friend in my list of friends. And she came to me a couple years ago to help her build a reel as an actor. But she's also a big-time high-powered lawyer, an awesome musician, and a compulsive overachiever. And wait for it, she's a lawyer, she's nice, she has common sense. I know it's crazy, right? Okay, I'm kidding. I have 4 lawyers and I love them all. I don't know why, you'll have to ask her, but she emailed me yesterday and asked if I had ever had what she called an NDE. The email was one line, just like that. Have you ever had an NDE? Now, I don't know that acronym. It stands for near-death experience, if you didn't know, and I guess it's a thing. She said there are entire podcasts, social networks of survivors, support groups, on and on of people who have had these things. I think she might have asked because we've been working on Order of the Five and her awareness that the veil can be very thin between this base reality in 2026 and other unseen realms is starting to reach epic proportions and play a much bigger role in her life, and that's a good thing. And that veil can get very, very thin sometimes, especially when one is in a creative fugue state, a flow state of acting or performing, a lucid dream state, a very difficult and exhausting, physically demanding state, like say a 5-hour bike ride, a multi-day long fast or tribal dance that all of our ancestors did, or any other kind of mystical experience that awaits an artist or person who is currently in denial about being an artist and is trying to seek greater enlightenment. That is, if they're willing to push the boundaries of consciousness. I've been very lucky in my life in that I've been able to spend a great deal of my waking hours and my dream travels in this kind of a state. It has happened to me on training rides, after training rides, in my theater, surfing huge waves, during long fasts, long stints without sleep, or a bunch of other times I'll go into in this series. So back to Lauren's short email. I'd written an article for a cycling magazine titled 9 Lives, which is now online. I think I wrote it for the print publication back in 2010 when people were still reading magazines, but I don't really know at this time. And at that point I had just had my 9th NDE, as Lauren calls it, so I rang her up and called her. She thought it was unbelievable, but I told her, I've led a somewhat dangerous life, so to me, it just made sense that I would have some close calls, and I didn't really think of it as a big deal. I mean, for more than a decade, I made my living as a professional cyclist, and if any of you have seen the Tour de France on TV, you know horrific, catastrophic crashes is an acceptable part of living in that world. If you want to be a pro cyclist, you better be okay with tumbling across the pavement wearing only Lycra in a heap of tangled metal, carbon fiber, and bodies, or you're not going to make it, no matter how much talent you have. Now, admittedly, after talking to Lauren, who rides bikes but doesn't race, to the average person out there that crashes in the Tour de France that happen between 20 and 60 miles per hour every single day, they look a little extreme. I understand that. And racers do die every year, but to a pro rider, it's just part of the deal. So again, these NDEs of mine, they were just a way of life, kind of. Because sitting here now, And after my discussion with the lawyer, that's what I like to call her, the lawyer, I realized that 9 is a pretty high number for one person. And most of my NDEs didn't happen on a bike anyway. So with bike racing, was it the chicken or the egg for me? I don't know, it doesn't matter. So back to the more mainstream definition of an NDE, it turns out that most other people's experiences are tied directly to them being unconscious when they happen. And these include things like leaving their body, floating around the room, or going toward a bright light, things like that. Nowadays, I think these are all kind of cliches, and I have heard about them, but I have never paid much attention to them because while it was cool and all, and I fully believe their stories, I thought it was at least a little bit tied to residue of something they'd seen or read, or they were misremembering or altering their thoughts and stories in a way that was easy to understand. This often happens to people who try to describe a paranormal or metaphysical experience that doesn't quite fit with the mainstream science or their definition of what is real or what is really going on. And the descriptions of a real event then get mixed up with what we've heard or read or seen in a movie in order to help our brains accept it. I think it might actually be a kind of defense mechanism, or not. I mean, who the hell really knows? And now we're overlapping right into the mysteries of consciousness itself, which, as you know, is one of the topics that is a major through line of my life. These questions are the main reason I write what I write and I've done what I've done in my creative career. Plus, when I read Lauren's email before I actually talked to her, I just looked at that email as another Jungian synchronicity that happens to me every day and that I rely on for the roots of my art. It made sense given the subject matter of Order of the Five and where we're at in the production of that film. But still, when I read it, I had one of those moments where the world just kind of wobbles and becomes a little unstable, and time starts to do very weird things, like looking at it all through a heat prism rising from the pavement on a one-lane road going across the desert at 100 miles an hour. Time is maybe the second greatest mystery in my life, and it's way up there on the list of things we don't know anything about in our own reality or any other reality or in the multiverse itself. And this is the very thing that keeps the geniuses who are astrophysicists, philosophers, mathematicians, inventors, and even religious scholars up all night. But I'll do another video on the mysteries of time at some other time. See what I did there? Now, the other reason I think I didn't recognize the NDE acronym is that during all of what I call my own near-death experiences, I'm completely conscious. Well, all but at least one. And my own NDEs happen right after I slip away from the Grim Reaper who I feel is coming for me. In other words, I narrowly escape death in ways that frankly don't make a lot of sense, and that, when taken as a collective, have to point to me having some kind of guardian angel or something. And I do have one of those. His name is Oi, but Oi operates in my lucid dream worlds. He's a serious warrior, more of a guardian of the spiritual realm than one of reality. He is not to be trifled with, so it's probably best not to include him in this YouTube medium. And I never thought it was Oi who saved me from grave bodily injury when I flew my bike off a cliff at 50 miles per hour. Anyway, I digress. Now, to a civilian out there who thinks what we as humans hear, touch, smell, and taste in our pathetic, limited senses, all of this might sound kind of strange. But my own NDEs, as I'm calling them, and more importantly, the interval of time right after the event, is what I ultimately ended up talking to Lauren about when I called her to tell her her instincts were correct and we should probably do something about it. Now, because like I've stated in other videos, I believe ignoring synchronicities is right up there with the greatest sins a person can commit. So here I am talking to you about it, and you all have Lauren to thank for this episode. But don't call her, because I think she bills like $2,000 an hour or something, and you don't want to get that bill. Now, in an effort to keep these 333 series videos manageable in length, I'm going to stop this episode right here. But in the next episode, I'm going to tell you a little story about one of my most insane NDEs and the time distortion that took place right after it. Then I'm going to link it to one of my recurring lucid dream experiences that has been happening to me since I was a very little kid, laying in bed, waiting to go to kindergarten on my very first day. And that part I didn't even realize was kind of the same experience of time until my conversation with Lauren last night. So I have to thank her for that as well. Okay, I'd love to hear about all of your own experiences in these areas, so please put those in the comments section so the AI Google God will stick us in the algorithm and we can find more soldiers for the Order of the Five Quartet and the battle that is raging for the human condition right now under our very noses. Thanks for watching, and check out the next episode if you want to hear the story of one of my 9 lives near-death experiences, or pseudo NDEs, I guess as Lauren calls them.